The Archbishop's Hour, 98.9 Albuquerque, 104.5 Santa Fe, 91.7 Clovis, 95.3 Farmington, 100.7 Gallup Grants, 88.7 Portales, 103.1 Santa Rosa, 99.9 Socorro, now bring you local news and information of interest to the Archdiocese of Santa Fe and the state of New Mexico. The Archbishop's Hour is brought to you from the Catholic Center here in Albuquerque. Now, here is your host, Mary Woods.
Welcome to the Archbishop's Hour. We're broadcasting on Immaculate Heart Radio to our New Mexico listeners in the Archdiocese of Santa Fe and the Diocese of Gallup. We are here due to the leadership of Archbishop Michael Sheehan to inform, foster, and deepen the message of the Gospel and the Catholic Church. I'm your host, Mary Woods, and our producer is Abad Archuleta. Later in the program, we'll hear about Homeless Prevention and Rapid Rehousing Project through Catholic Charities Center for Self-Sufficiency and Housing Assistance with case managers Sarita Vinje and James Walker, as well as the new Rental Assistance Program. And we'll hear Alan Sanchez, Executive Director of the New Mexico Conference of Catholic Bishops, with his report on the New Mexico State Legislative Session. And we'll also hear a reflection on today's Gospel brought to you by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. But before we get to that and our news segment of the day, let's hear about our Saint of the Day.
This is Saint of the Day for January 27th from the Franciscans and St. Anthony Messenger Press. Today we celebrate St. Angela Merici. It was in a vision that today's saint was told she could one day found a religious community. But Angela Merici drew on her deep faith and her natural leadership qualities to make it happen. The founder of the first teaching congregation of women in the church, the Ursulines, Angela was a born educator. Early in life, she was appalled at the ignorance among poorer children in her native Italy, especially their lack of religious training. She took it upon herself to give regular instructions to the young neighborhood girls. Angela continued her work after moving to central Italy. She was joined by women with similar ideals. At age 57, Angela organized a dozen young women to help her in catechetical work. Several years later, the group, which had grown to 28, became the Company of St. Ursula. Members continued to live at home, wore no special habit, and took no formal vows, though the early rule required they live lives of poverty, chastity, and obedience. The new congregation was officially recognized in 1544. Its members were dedicated to re-Christianizing family life through solid Christian education of future wives and mothers. Angela died in 1540. There's more about the saints along with inspiration and Catholic resources at our website, franciscanradio.org. From the Franciscans and St. Anthony Messenger Press, this is Saint of the Day.
Most of us have never killed another person. So while the first reading today may be an exciting story, the experience of King David may not seem necessarily near to ours. But think again. The story is a classic case of how sin begins small and grows greater when it's left unchecked. There are a whole series of decisions that David makes, and each one leads him deeper into sin. First, when kings usually go out in battle, King David stayed home. Next, David takes a siesta that goes into the evening. Obviously, he's a little bored. He strolls around the roof of his palace. It's as though he's looking for trouble. And of course, he finds it. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. A man of moral courage would have turned away at this point. But not only does David look, he looks long enough to see that she's very beautiful. Then he makes inquiries about her. He finds out that she's the daughter of one of his soldiers and the wife of another soldier. Uriah belonged to the elite band of 30 who fought with David from the beginning. Once again, a man of moral courage would have turned away at finding the woman was married. But David continued his reckless pursuit, and not only does he visit with her, but he sleeps with her and he gets her pregnant. Yet again, the opportunity is given to David to be a man of courage and own his sin, but instead he sends for Uriah not to confess to him, but to see if Uriah will sleep with his wife and get David off the hook. He even gets Uriah drunk to try and manipulate him. Lastly, David finally brings himself to effect the death of Uriah. So in the course of just a few lines of biblical verse and a few days of time, David was presented with, as on my count, at least 13 moral decisions, and each poor choice led him deeper toward grave sin. The moral choices that we face every day hopefully will never lead us to murder, but we probably will fail to realize just how many such decisions we make in the course of one day. Sin starts small and it grows. But so too can virtue in the kingdom grow, as Jesus says today in the gospel. Sin or virtue? Throughout the course of just one day, we're always just one act of moral courage away.
Welcome, Alan Sanchez, Executive Director of the New Mexico Conference of Catholic Bishops, with his report today from Santa Fe. How's it going, Alan?
Hello, Mary. Well, it's going very good, actually. We've had some wins. We've got the parental notification for a minor back on track to be able to be introduced, and has been introduced, but to be heard. It's back on the call. That will take place probably next week sometime. We'll have a hearing for parental notification for a minor to have an abortion. There's a lot of talk about maybe a compromise to be made that would still put in place some kind of notification. We'd rather have the strong one that includes all minors. We'll read those amendments when the opposition brings those forward. We'll read those and see if we can live with them. But the bottom line is all we can do is give them our opinion, and then they go vote how they vote. But I think we got a good chance of getting something good done there. Then yesterday, the bishops have been supporting a compromise bill that strengthens the law of the driver's license. That bill that the governor has introduced to take away the driver's license was shelved, tabled, and it was replaced with the compromise bill that we endorsed last year that passed out of the Senate. So let me remind our listeners, this compromise bill is pretty tough. And it deals with fingerprinting. They can only get a driver's license for 2 years at a time. And we know when the law is enforced, it works. You've heard the cases coming forward. That's great. We congratulate Secretary Padilla for enforcing the law. And there's many laws that get broken, Marion, but that's not the reason why we should repeal those laws. We need to enforce the law. The other good news is our constitutional amendment for early childhood development to make sure that our youngest children from prenatal, infants, and toddlers, that those programs that really make the change for the future for them and their parents, and getting parents engaged and getting parents to take on responsibility, passed its first committee this morning. That's SJR 9. And then we had another victory with the opportunity tax scholarships. These are the tuition scholarship, tax credits. A tax credit is when somebody donates money to an organization that they can claim that on their income tax as a credit, not a deduction, a credit. And so for tuition scholarships to private schools, that was passed out of a committee this morning also. So a lot of victories lining up. And this weekend they'll stay here and they'll continue. So on Monday I will give you a report, Mary.
Alan, we'll look forward to our conversation on Monday, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Mary.
Alan Sanchez, Executive Director of the New Mexico Conference of Catholic Bishops, keeping track of everything that's going on in Santa Fe. You're listening to Archbishop's Hour, Catholic Radio at 98.9 FM in Albuquerque, 104.5 in Santa Fe, and 100.7 in Gallup. From the Catholic News Service, Vatican downplays charges of financial corruption. Insisting on the Holy See's continuing commitment to transparency and rectitude in economic affairs, the Vatican spokesman downplayed references to corruption in a letter apparently sent to Pope Benedict XVI by a Vatican official who is now Apostolic Nuncio to the United States. Jesuit Father Federico Lombardi, director of the Vatican Press Office, criticized as partisan, partial, and banal an Italian television news program which on January 25th broadcast portions of letters addressed to Pope Benedict and Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone, the Vatican Secretary of State. The letters were apparently signed by Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano and written when he was the Secretary General of the Commission governing Vatican City. One of the letters, dated April 4th, 2011, said that when Archbishop Vigano took office almost 2 years earlier, he discovered a disastrous situation of chaotic management and overspending on contracts. The letter also complained of a media campaign launched by opponents of the Archbishop's efforts at reform and implored the Pope not to remove him from his job, even for promotion to a more important post. The Pope named Archbishop Vigano as nuncio to the U.S. in October of 2011. The commission manages the 108 acres of Vatican City State, including the Vatican Gardens and museums. And we'll no doubt hear more about that. However, that's it for our news segment of the day. We do have announcements, and we'll start with a reminder that Catholic Schools Week, where we celebrate Catholic education, this year is January 29th through February 5th. And something you should look out for, particularly if you're looking for a great school for your children. There will be open houses at our various Catholic schools in the Archdiocese scheduled through that period of time. And we'll mention that San Felipe de Neri Catholic School, that's open enrollment, pre-kindergarten through 8th grade. And their open house will be Wednesday, February 1st from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. San Felipe de Neri Catholic School. You can call them at 242-2411. Queen of Heaven Catholic School, that's here in Albuquerque on Phoenix Avenue, will hold their open house tomorrow, Saturday, January 28th, from 12 noon to 2 p.m. There will also be an open house on Monday, January 30th, from 6 to 8 p.m. for new families. And for more information about Queen of Heaven Catholic School, call 881-2484. 881-2484. Our Lady of Fatima Catholic School here in Albuquerque will have an open house also on Saturday, January 28th from 1 to 2:30 p.m. in the Fatima Gallagher Hall School Gym. And a number to call for more information about Our Lady of Fatima Catholic School is 255-6391. 255-6391. Help celebrate the excellence of Catholic educations for Catholic Schools Week, January 29th through February 5th. A reminder that tonight is the big night for the St. Felix Pantry Benefit International Dinner and Dance. And all the proceeds go to support St. Felix Pantry. Does tremendous work there as a food pantry, all free to those who need. And they're based up in Rio Rancho. St. Felix Pantry Incorporated is sponsored by the Felician Sisters of North America. But what you need to know is how to get your tickets and take part this evening. The dinner will be from 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. at Darko Hall at St. Thomas Aquinas Church in Rio Rancho. And tickets for adults are $15. They're $5 for children. And I understand that while folks are setting up all today at Darko Hall for the dinner this evening, which begins at 5 p.m., you can get your tickets today at Darko Hall, and there may still be tickets available at the door tonight beginning at 5 p.m. So for more information, you can call St. Felix Pantry at 891-8075, 891-8075, or stop by Darko Hall this afternoon to get your tickets. $5 for children, $15 for adults. All money, wonderful proceeds go to St. Felix Pantry. And otherwise, it's Italian and Polish food and music by the Starlighters. Should be great fun. Again, the location, Darko Hall, St. Thomas Aquinas Church, 1502 Sarah Road, Southeast in Rio Rancho. Coming up on Saturday the 28th at the Canossian Spirituality Center. Presenter, Sister Marcia Huber, will make actually lead a day's retreat on embracing life's transitions. During the retreat, they'll consider how past patterns of moving through times of transition influence the way we enter into and journey through present significant times of change and loss. The retreat will be from 9 to 3 p.m., and it will be at the Kenosha Spirituality Center. The cost is $40 and includes lunch, and there's an opportunity to attend the anticipatory Mass following the actual retreat. For more information, you need to call the Kenosha Spirituality Center at 452-9402, 452-9402, right here in Albuquerque. Also, the Family Life Office would like you to know that The Wonder of Myself, a special one-day class for mothers and their adolescent daughters, will be held tomorrow, January 28th. And for more information, you need to call the Family Life Office to see if they still have room to register. The number there is 831-8117, 831-8117 here in Albuquerque. The cost is $15 per person. I believe it includes lunch. And don't forget, you are still invited to the Immaculate Conception Parish's Winter Ball, a mystical masquerade at Hotel Albuquerque. This will also be on Saturday, starting at 6 p.m. Proceeds go towards Immaculate Conception's building project. I understand the tickets for the Winter Ball are $60. There was a deadline to purchase that we have passed, but, you know, you can try. Anyway, $60, a mere pittance for a delightful evening, a wonderful dinner. There will be music and more. And for more information, to see if tickets are still available for tomorrow night, you can call the parish office at 247-4271, 247-4271, and also to see if there are still those raffle tickets available for the classic 1968 Mustang, which is up for, well, it's up for raffle. Again, call 505-247-4271 for the January 28th Mystical Masquerade at the Hotel Albuquerque to raise money for the building project for Immaculate Conception Parish downtown in Albuquerque. That's it for our announcements. We'll be back with my guests after this break. Please stay with us.
I'm Archbishop Sheehan. We are very blessed in the Archdiocese of Santa Fe to have wonderful Catholic schools. We have 15 grade schools and 2 Catholic high schools.
I chose to teach at St. Pius because of the class sizes.
I love the community. I love the collaboration with other teachers.
I love my students, their willingness to learn.
I love the students here.
The respect that they have, it allows me to be a really good teacher.
So I think Catholic schools give you a value-based education.
I think education is about teaching the whole student. There's the academics, but there's also the physical part of the student and the emotional and the spiritual.
And I'm able to provide the individual attention that they need.
A very proud environment of being Catholic.
And a safe environment.
Believe it or not, I enjoy coming to school every day.
Learn more about Archdiocese of Santa Fe Catholic Schools. Log on to csoadmin.org.
My grandma still remembers the nuns who taught her. Altogether, my family was taught by Catholic sisters or brothers for 86 years. Those sisters and brothers worked for people, not for money. They still do. But many are older now. More than 11,000 need nursing care or daily help. There aren't any nuns at my school today, but I feel like they're a part of my life. I want to share in their care.
To share in the care, contact a Catholic parish near you.
You take to the mountain just for the day and see your reflection in the Hollywood Hills. I've played for my mother, my father and brother. We sang all the verses in the Valley of Gold. All of my heart and all of my faith, take my hand, baby, we'll make it.
Welcome back to Archbishop's Hour. You're listening to us at 95.3 FM in Farmington, 88.7 in Portales, and 91.7 in Clovis. And I'm just thrilled today. I've got two delightful guests here in the studio. A new guest and a returning guest. Our topic, of course, is going to be the work of Catholic Charities in the Archdiocese of Santa Fe. They're based here in Albuquerque, do tremendous work for a whole variety of clientele. But today we're going to be talking about the Center for Self-Sufficiency and Housing Assistance. And while the director, Elisa Bosa, I understand, she was not able to make it today. She's been very kind to talk to us in the past. We have two eminently qualified people who are going to tell us more about Catholic Charities and this particular center. And both of these folks, my guests today, are case managers. Sarita Vinje is a lead case manager, and James Walker is a case manager. I don't think they do less work because they have a shorter title. But we're going to get a little background on them, and then we're going to hear more about what is going on these days. There's been some maybe additions of programs, and other things that have been halted, but we'll hear more about it. I'm going to start left to right around the table. Sarita Vinje, lead case manager. Tell me a little bit about what you do at the center and, kind of your day-to-day activities, and also maybe a little bit of background, how long you've been there working at this center.
Sure. Again, my name is Sarita, and I've been with the agency 2.5 years. And I specifically work with the Homeless Prevention and Rapid Rehousing Program, also known as HPRP. And we have 3 case managers and 2 program assistants. And so we've been very busy since August of 2009. And we provide homeless prevention assistance to those that are facing eviction, and we also rehouse those that are currently experiencing homelessness, so living in a shelter, in their car, on the street.
I want to ask you more about this, but I don't want to neglect James Walker. So we'll just throw it out there for later in our program, in our conversation. I want to hear about the rapid rehousing, homeless prevention, rapid rehousing program. 2009 is when it started, because I understand that there was a federal government grant that was made available and that Catholic Charities applied for and said, we can use this. We know the people who need this. But that funding was finite and that it has stopped. So we'll be inquiring further as to how you can continue that, or if it is continuing, and where the money comes from. If the federal government has stopped in that respect, their partnership with Catholic Charities. I don't think they can really stop their partnership with Catholic Charities, because across the country, Catholic Charities is extremely efficient at delivering the services that the government is trying to make available to folks. I'm talking too much because I'm not the expert. I want to talk to James Walker, who's also a case manager and in the same Center for Self-Sufficiency and Housing Assistance. Welcome, James, and tell us how long you've been at Catholic Charities and how you got involved in this work.
Well, I've been at Catholic Charities for 2 years, and I've been in Albuquerque about 2.5 years. I came to Albuquerque from Los Angeles, and previously I was involved with Missionaries of Charity, Mother Teresa's group, and did that for about 19 years and worked mostly in Los Angeles with people living on the streets, with a lot of the immigrant population. And when I moved out here to Albuquerque, through mutual friends, I heard about the Center for Housing Assistance and at Catholic Charities, and I applied for a job as a case manager.
Now, did you have a background, in social work or any kind of thing like that kind of brought you into this?
I had 19 years of working with that population in Los Angeles. So
that's pretty impressive. Can you explain a little bit about your relationship with Missionaries of Charity? I would say, if it was a Franciscan organization, I would say, well, there are men and women working and you were part of the order. But Missionaries of Charity, the order, as far as I know, and I'm limited in what I know, are women. So give us some insight into how that worked and what is the work that they're doing in Los Angeles.
Well, actually, they're also men. Mother Teresa founded a group of men, brothers, in 1963. And mostly they were in India, and in the 70s they started founding communities outside of India, and they came to Los Angeles in 1975. And I joined the group in 1990.
So what are you called?
I'm not called. I'm no longer with the community, but I was with the community as a brother.
You were a brother. What are they called, since we now, missionaries of charity would be both genders, so that's all right. But we were called Brothers of the Missionaries of Charity?
It would be Missionaries of Charity Brothers.
Fabulous. How wonderful is that? You're continuing this tremendous work, and it's rather exciting. Obviously, that was your call to work with people from day one. So when you arrived in Albuquerque, you found out about this possible work through Catholic Charities. And is it, how different and how similar is it to the work you were doing in Los Angeles?
Well, it's very, very similar in the fact that you are helping people by accompanying them, and very different in the fact that Catholic Charities does it in a much more organized and holistic approach. Catholic Charities really empowers the people to basically learn how to fish. And where the Missionaries of Charity, we are basically meeting their direct needs. Like,
you're handing out the fish to eat for that day.
That's correct.
Right. So, and we need all parts of this in our charitable work and our call to take care of our brothers and sisters, because you address the same problem from a lot of different angles. You can really help a lot of people, I think, much more effectively. But now, let's get back to what is going on at the Center for Self-Sufficiency and Housing Assistance right now. I'm going to turn back here to Sarita, and we'll be back with James Walker. But can you tell us that question, what is the status of the Homeless Prevention and Rapid Rehousing Program? Heretofore, it will be known as the HP, well, is it HPRRP?
HPRP.
HPRP, all right.
So HPRP was made available through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 in collaboration with the City of Albuquerque, the New Mexico Mortgage Finance Authority, and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Okay, say these things slowly, because just the long names of these things, it's governmentese. Our little, eyes will be rolling up in our heads, our minds will be reeling. Yeah, you can take your time with that.
So it was the City of Albuquerque, the New Mexico Mortgage Finance Authority, and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. HPRP is federal stimulus dollars. And so the idea was to spend it out within 3 years. And so right now...
What was that money for?
To provide rental assistance.
And who was the rental assistance for? This is, as I recall, there was a very specific population. It wasn't just, gee, I'm a little short this month, and could you help me out because, my car broke down.
The program is really geared at those that have been affected by the economy. So whether that's job loss, a decrease in work hours, our participants are at or below 50% of the median household income, so for its size. We also have a work requirement in the program, so individuals in our program, adults, have to have worked for at least 3 consecutive months within the last 18 months. And the purpose of the program is really to encourage self-sufficiency and to be able to pay rent on time or car payments or whatever other bills, the household is.
Okay, just to be clear, that program, the famous, let me get it right, the HPRP, or Homeless Prevention Rapid Rehousing Program, started out funds from the government and a partnership, New Mexico Mortgage, HUD from the feds. And your targeted group were people who were already in the lowest income bracket, who were trying to stay in their home, their rental home, whether a home or apartment, who had a history of employment, but who might be recently unemployed or have had their hours cut back. So these are the people who are really, really vulnerable at sort of the bottom end of the economic scale that this financial crisis that exploded in 2009 these are the people who would be really knocked off the economic, happy table right off the bat. So this was a very, very specific population.
Correct.
And how much money was there? We don't have that exact amount, do we? Yeah. Whatever the money was, that was...
It's over $1 million.
It was over $1 million, but not much, as I recall.
Much.
And it was expected to be parceled out through the 3 years that the program was in effect.
Correct. So we're coming to an end. We are expected to spend out the funds by May of 2012, if not before.
All right. And is that program in any way going to be continued?
At this point, it's not. We are really advocating and working with the coalition to end homelessness to, provide statistics of how helpful this program really was to our community so that they can advocate for more money.
All right. But that would be a kind of a special request as opposed to this program that, where the money was intentionally set aside and budgeted and put forth for organizations like Catholic Charities of Archdiocese of Santa Fe. Any idea? I should let you read the rest of the material that you have prepared for me here.
Well, HPRP has served a number of households since 2009. So we have served 441 households, and that's over 1,200 individuals. So 71% of those households included at least one child. And HPRP provides rental assistance up to 12 months. At this point, since funding is coming to an end, we're really just providing short-term assistance. So we might catch somebody up if they're behind 1 or 2 months, and maybe 1 month, going forward. Part of HPRP is that all of our program participants receive case management. So case management is a huge piece. And so as case managers, we try to provide, as James said, we try to accompany them. We really work with them to establish goals that are reasonable and attainable within a short period of time.
This is the idea of having somebody who's sort of counseling you to help you manage how you are going to remain housed and employed and taking care of your children. This is incredibly valuable because so many, people who are working, who can pay their rent, they may not think about this. You lose that job and all of a sudden the world falls apart and you say, well, I'm going out and looking for work, but things can unravel rather quickly, as we found out. We find it out in the regular news every day. And the most horrifying element of this, it's bad enough for everyone, but the most horrifying element is children who their families are still intact, but the whole family is homeless. If they're lucky, they're staying in homeless shelters. Less lucky might be that the whole family is living out of a car. And they're still trying to get their children to school, God bless them. But to find food, this is a really, really a drastic situation. So let's shift for a moment. James, how do you counsel people? How do you, hold their hand, travel with them to prevent this from happening or to pull them back from the brink of this situation?
Well, after they first come in, we want them to sit down and we try to have them tell their story, their life story. And, people are understandably a little reticent to do that, but we try to assure them that we're not here to judge them, that we want to know as much about their life and their history as possible so that we can see a pattern and see the areas where they probably could use some assistance and suggestions and referrals. Very often people have just been thrown into life at very young ages. And so many have not graduated from high school. They have young children and they've worked. And now with the work over, they're finding without having a high school diploma or a GED, that's one of the barriers that is difficult for them to get employment because they haven't had a high school diploma. The other thing is they've never really learned, some of them have never learned how to save or how to budget, how to use a bank account successfully. So many of them come in, do not have bank accounts because, something has happened in the past where they were overdrawn and they didn't understand how that happened. And so they don't trust banks. So they need a lot of feedback to say, well, maybe you can do this. And we have classes. That's what our life skill classes are about.
I hope that at some point in this conversation we'll be able to talk about those life skill classes, because I feel that not knowing how all the programs work, but being so grateful that Catholic Charities has a system in place for people at every point where something really terrible could be happening, that there's a way for them to be kind of pulled from the brink of disaster, whether it's being able to stay housed even when you are underemployed. I love that euphemism. Even when you're not making enough money to be able to manage things, but it's the only work that you can get, or somebody's downsized and you've lost your job. We need to know how, that people still can have hope. But this, the Life Skills program, now is that part of a different center of services at Catholic Charities, Sarita?
It's not. We've coordinated within housing different classes. So we provide a class called Renters' Rights. So that helps our participants learn about their rights as a tenant, and about the court system, and the proper way to report a repair needed in their unit. It's always great to write it down so that you have proof that you've turn that in. We also provide a 10-week financial education course, and that's provided through the New Mexico Mortgage Finance Authority, the New Mexico Project Financial Literacy. There's too many acronyms. And so that's a 10-week course. We also have just a 1-hour financial course that's provided through Wells Fargo. We have another 2-hour financial seminar that's provided through Money Management. So as you can kind of see, there's a theme about money management, because that's where a lot of our participants need some guidance. I think we could all benefit from that guidance.
I'm thinking there are a lot of people listening, including myself, who feel like I probably should sign up for that. But no, Catholic Charities, this is specifically for people who are really in desperate need of this, who have never had any maybe preparation and stuff like this. They didn't have, the uncle who said, I think you better set aside, part of your paycheck and save it if you want that car, or, things like that.
Right. Another great class, we have job development. So we have job development 101 and 102. So those classes are focused on creating a resume, interviewing skills, and then 102 is actually a mock interview. So our participants are encouraged to come dressed like they're going to an interview with a resume in hand, and then they're matched with somebody who's done hiring in the past. And so they complete a mock interview, and then they're evaluated, because so often we go to interviews and, if we're turned down, we never hear the why. So this way we try to guide people, make sure you make eye contact, that your answers are not too, drawn out, that you answer the question. So that's a great class. And Catholic Charities, in June, a new center opened. It's the Center for Job Development.
Wow.
And so we do have a few job developers, and so they work specifically with some of our housing participants.
All right. Thank you for all of that wonderful detail. As we look at the closing of this program, Homeless Prevention Rapid Rehousing Program, in May, is there anything that will fill the gap? Because I know that you've had clients. You've had over, 400 clients who have needed to participate in this. James, what can you tell me about this and maybe the rental assistance program? That's something entirely different and new, right?
Yes. Well, we've received funding through the federal government and through Mortgage Finance Authority, funding for Sandoval County. It's not as extensive as what we had in Albuquerque with the HPRP program, but is very similar in scope. And we are going to be helping people there with rental assistance starting February 8th.
Tell me about why Sandoval County. Spell it out for us, as opposed to this. Was it something that maybe an application for this money was made only through that county and not Bernallio County or other places? How did that work? Sarita?
From what I know is Catholic Charities applied for the grant specifically for Sandoval County.
I see.
So trying to start new programs, and expanding our service area. But the program is kind of a mix of different federal funds. There's emergency shelter grant funds and tenant-based rental assistance funds. So the funding is coming from a couple different sources to create the RAP, or the rental assistance program.
For both this program, maybe I shouldn't throw them all into the same pot here, but for this program or the Homeless Prevention Rapid Rehousing Program, can you give us an idea of, we don't have to be like scientific exact in terms of like days or hours or months, but the average amount of time that a client would be being served by Catholic Charities, having to do with making sure that they would not end up homeless, or themselves, their families, their kids. And I'm assuming that that kind of care or attention through Catholic Charities would actually cover a variety of bases. For instance, it might go, be the financial help for rental, home. But it might also be that counseling, or, the financial information, learning how to deal with your finances, or for that matter, maybe being referred to get your GED. About how long, as case managers, have you tracked or with clients, if that's the right way to put it?
So in HPRP, it just depends on the household's needs. So there are some households that receive no case management. It's a very short-term program for them. In other cases, we've assisted up to 12 months. So that's the maximum amount of time in HPRP. For the new RAP program in Sandoval County, participants are eligible. It's really going to be based on a month-to-month, but the maximum amount of assistance that someone could receive is up to 11 months of assistance in the program.
Oh, right. And is your expectation, based on your previous experience, that you will have, a lot of families or a lot of clients there with you for the year? Or is that usually a smaller percentage of the people you serve, the people who need that attention for the entire 11 months?
I think it really just depends on, it's a new program, so we are going out on February 9th to really get the word out, and so we'll see what the need is in that community.
Where is the center located that will be managing or be command central for this program in Sandoval County?
Well, to begin with, we're going to be using part of the parish grounds of Our Lady of Sorrows in Bernallio.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, there will be, starting February 9th, people can, on Fridays between hours of 1 and 2, if they do not have access to a phone, they can walk in.
What are the days and times?
Well, I will be there to begin with every Thursday and Friday, starting February 9th. But if you do not have a phone and you want to do basically a screen to find out if you pre-qualify for the program, they can walk in on Fridays between the hours of 1 and 2 p.m.
Wow. So there is a time and a place to show up if all else fails. If you've lost your phone service, don't have the internet, maybe you're homeless, you have no way to say, hi, call me back at this number. It's 1 to 2 p.m. Fridays, starting February 9th, and you'll be talking to James Walker.
Yes, and I also recommend, if you do have a phone, best to call, and I will call you back, and we'll do a phone screen with you to see what your situation is. And my phone number is area code 505-724-4611. 724-4611, and just leave a message and I will call you back, and we'll discuss what the situation is and see if we could possibly help you.
And this is specifically for the rental assistance program, and that operative date when things begin is February 9th.
Yes, and that is in Sandoval County.
That's specifically for Sandoval County. And that means that the person must be a resident or have a work history in Sandoval County if they no longer have an address. Is that how that works?
Yes, they must be a resident. And it's pretty much the same requirements as HPRP, but we ask that that they are under the 30% income level. We ask that they have worked for 3 months, at least 3 months in the last 3 years, because we want to be able to work with them to find employment. We ask that if they have any income at all, they will pay 30% of their income to the landlord, and then we'll pay the rest.
Wow. Now, you mentioned the 30% rule. Can you explain again in detail what that means to be part of the 30%? It's 30% of what?
Of the median household size for that area.
All right. Can you explain that for our listeners?
Well, this 30% median income is what HUD has set for that county. So I don't have those figures with me. But
no, that's okay. But when we talk about median household income, that's not average. That's as in that's not an average of the amounts. It's the median. And I'm hoping that one or either of you can explain that. An average amount would be, if somebody down the street from me, their income for the year is, $100,000 and mine is $30,000. To find the average, we would add those two numbers and then divide by 2. Now, that means that, the average income on my block with only those two people is going to be about $75,000. I don't make $75,000 a year. And in fact, my neighbor makes a good deal more. That's an average. Median is actually something different. And I'm hoping that you can explain that for our listeners.
And to be honest, I'm not exactly sure how the government comes up with the median income.
Okay.
But I can give you an example. So I believe it's a household of 4 has to make under $30,000. And that's just a rough estimate. And they would be considered under 50% of the median household income. And then it's a smaller percentage of money that would be considered 30%. So it's really looking at those that are in poverty. 30% is a low number.
To discover what the median income is, you're basically, rather than just saying, $75,000 when that's drastically, out of the ballpark, that a median income is what the maybe what the greatest number of the population is actually making in a particular range. And then, of course, it's all decided, how large the family is for the particular income, or what the particular income is for a family of a given size. So that would be the amount of money that you could assume people get along pretty well, or, the regular person gets along pretty well on that amount of money with that size family. And if you're only making 30% of that, a third of what people are getting along pretty well on, not too much, not too little, you're making a lot less is what it comes down to. And when you've got a household with maybe older folks or little children, just people who need to be fed, that's a serious designation of poverty, right?
Correct.
Okay. And I promise I'll do some research so I can properly explain what the median income is. But it's not the average; it's the median, and what the government says is it's got to be a certain percentage less than that kind of regular how people are just getting along. I hope that wasn't too confusing.
What it might be confusing is I mentioned 30% that they're going to pay as part of their rent, 30% of their income, which means if they're getting zero income, then they would not pay. Or if they're getting a little bit over that, they would only pay 30% of that, and we would pay the rest.
Mm-hmm. So that no matter what somebody is making, Many people have been in danger of losing their housing, their rental apartments or houses, because they were underemployed, that cute term for, I'm making minimum wage, and I'm trying to pay the rent for me and my kids and my, grandmother. But the bottom line is that minimum wage very rarely can act properly pay what the average rent is maybe in Albuquerque. And in that case, you need a group of people who are bringing in an income, or you're not going to be able to make the rent. So in this case, they're only expected, whatever they're making, to apply a third of whatever they make to their rent. And if that has a shortfall with the landlord, then this program will fill in the balance. And I assume that there's some kind of checking on this program to make sure that the landlord is not, kind of inflating the price.
Correct. We actually follow the fair market rate, which is what, again, the government deems as a reasonable amount of money to spend on a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom unit. And those numbers are, they were decreased from last year. So I believe a 1-bedroom is $555. And that should include utilities, or at least a utility allowance. Housing really should not be, for any of us, should not be more than 30% of our income should not be going to housing. So again, in the RAP program, our participants will be paying 30% of their income. Clearly, if they have no income, they won't be paying anything.
And that's how they figure that out. And also, as far as actually finding places for folks to have a home if they've been homeless, do you have kind of standards and regulations that if a place looks like, someone's trying to make money on the rent, but they're not keeping the place up, is there some recourse?
Yes. We've been trained by HUD for the HQS, which Housing Quality Standards, and there's a minimum requirement that a unit or a home has to pass for us to approve it for a family to move in, and if it's a new place, for them to sign the lease, or if they've been living there, for us to pay their back rent and going forward. And it's very fair. I think it has to do with the safety and the quality of life for the family, that if we are going to use federal funds, that the place is not substandard.
Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that the heater is working and the stove is working and that the water is clean and, it actually comes out of the faucet when it's supposed to, and that there aren't drips from the ceiling and things like that.
That it's hot water coming out of the hot and cold out of the cold. That smoke detectors are located in the unit and that they work.
Yeah.
That the electrical outlets are grounded, that the electrical system is safe. And that also fire exits, that, you don't have security bars on the only windows that would be the exit for that side of the house.
Yeah, this is incredibly valuable too. And there's many people who are taken advantage of because they don't know all the rules and regulations. They're so grateful to have a place that they can rent that they fear upsetting the apple cart, rock, or what other metaphor can I come up with, rocking the boat. They don't want to complain because they're afraid they'll be evicted. And there are rules for eviction, too. Rules for safety and standards in housing, and rules that say you cannot be thrown out of your house for certain things. And these are the things that you advise people on, aren't they?
Correct.
We also advocate on their behalf with their landlord or their apartment manager. And it really does change once they know that we are going to be working with them. Many apartment managers and landlords are very generous. And you can see that many have been generous, not moving to take their tenants to court right away when they have a legal right to do so, and have let this go, hoping that the family is going to find some way to pay the rent.
Oh yeah. I realize that we've only got about 2 minutes left to our program today, and we have so much to talk about, and I hope you will we'll have an opportunity. I know we'll have an opportunity to continue. But I want to thank you both so much for being here. We've been talking with Sarita, Vinje, and James Walker, both with the, let's get it right, Center for Self-Sufficiency and Housing Assistance, Catholic Charities, Archdiocese of Santa Fe. A phone number to call, particularly for that program in Sandoval County with James Walker, is 505-724-4611, 505-724-4611. How can our listeners and other folks get more information beyond that particular phone number and program? Sarita?
Our main office number is 505-724-4670. So the best thing is to call that number. You'll be asked, what the situation is, and then your call will be directed to the appropriate department.
All right. And if somebody completely forgets that, what do they Google on the internet, or who do they look up in a phone book?
Catholic Charities of Central New Mexico.
All right. Of Central New Mexico.
Just to find us easy.
All right. Otherwise, the internet address would be Catholic Charities. I believe it's ASF. Not new. It doesn't have an NM on it. Abed is filling in here. It's Catholic Charities ASF, and that's all words spelled out. Catholic Charities ASF stands for Archdiocese Santa Fe. So anyway, at that point, if somebody will be, computer literate, they'll be able to Google and find something pretty quick. Thanks, Abed, for filling that in. I'm going to give the number again. Catholic Charities, 724-4670. That's in Albuquerque. 724-4670 for that rental assistance program, and so much more on all of these tremendous kind of counseling and life skills and helping folks out. But you guys are dynamite and doing such tremendous work. Last word, Sarita, James?
Thank you very much for having us.
Well, I'm delighted. James?
Thank you very much. And those in Sandoval County, looking forward to meeting you in person.
Bravo. This is dynamite. And thank you for listening to Archbishop's Hour, Catholic Radio.
For the past 60 minutes, you've been listening to the Archbishop's Hour from the Catholic Center in Albuquerque. Join us Monday through Friday, noon to 1, and for the encore, 5 to 6 p.m. for the Archbishop's Hour, discussing with our guests and audience issues of importance to New Mexico Catholics and all the people of God. Thank you for listening and supporting Catholic Radio.